Many cultures retain their stories and memories by telling and retelling the information and pass them down from one generation to the next. This is called oral history. Stories of the creation, origin, separation, and migration of the Crow Nation are well known by most members of the tribe. Today we will be listening to three highly respected Crow tribal elders who were interviewed for their knowledge and expertise in the oral history of the Crow people. Throughout the narrations, note the repetition. Dr. Barney Old Coyote is known as Young White Buffalo Bullcalf, a member of the Whistling Water Clan of the Crow Nation. Dr. Old Coyote is a founder and member of the Crow Cultural Committee. Dr. Joseph Medicine Crow was appointed the official tribal historian by the Crow Tribal Council. His Indian name is Highbird. He is a member of the Whistling Water Clan of the Crow Nation. Winona Plentyhoops is one of the most important religious leaders of the Crow Nation in her role as the sacred seed mixer of the Tobacco Society. Her Indian name is Old Medicine Dress, and she is from the Sore Lip Clan. The Crow stories of creation were very detailed. There were songs and many helpers or beings involved in the first maker's process of creating the land, the mountains, wildlife, and the first human beings. In this program, we will hear the Crow elders summarize the story of creation as it is told among the Crow tribe.
The Creator created all kinds of beings around, but there was no land. There was water everywhere, and being as all powerful as he was, as he is, he looked around and he said, "It's very lonely. I'm all alone. I need to do something to populate this place, but there's really no land." He said, "I need someone to occupy this land who thinks and believes as I do and does things as I do." So he called upon his animals and some of the beings. What we need is some mud, some earth. So go to the bottom of the sea and bring some. The coyote disappeared underwater, but came up with nothing. He did that with several of the beings, and then he finally saw some ducks floating around, and he called them his little brothers. He said, "Brothers, I want one of you to go down and see if you can come up with some semblance of what's really where we are." So the duck dove down and dove 3 times, and the 4th time he came up and he had some mud on his bill. And he said, "That's what it is." He said, "That's what I'm looking for." He said, "Where did you get that?" He says, "I went down as deep as I could and picked this up on the bottom." And he says, "There's no more water below that." So he took that and he fashioned a model and an image of himself. And then they say that we are told that after he made the image, he breathed into it and gave it life and gave the human beings their lives. But still, there was still water everywhere. So he took more of that mud and then created the hills and the mountains. And then he went from where he was and made the earth as a place where human beings could live, so that he was not lonely, because the creature that he created was in his own image. And they say we are people in the image of the Creator, and that he created everything, and I mean everything, all the animals, the birds, the rocks, the trees, the rivers formed in his direction. How he perceived the world is the way we see it today. He said that no place will be the same. Every place will be different. And that way, all the animals will be different from one another. There's no such thing as everything being alike as the way the way it's related, how the Creator approached this creation of His.
But it was awful quiet. No sound, nothing moving, except the leaves moving in the wind. So he said, "This is no good. Let's make some animals." Pretty soon he heard some birds chattering over there. So animals started moving around and making sound. Some animals were in the water, jumping out of water. Some flying away up in the sky and sitting on. So he left and came back again to check, and there are even more animals, and the place was even prettier.
And he said, I will make this land in a way that some will have a high place to live, others will have a low place to live. I will bring them down to the water, but they won't live underwater. There's other creatures that will remain in the water. And they say the Creator said, these places, there'll be places where the mountains will be home to some of these things that I've created. Other places will be away from the mountains. Other places will be a combination. And for that reason, he placed the mountains in a way that some were very high, where very few beings could live. Other places were bountiful, where a lot of beings could exist. And that's why we have carnivores and non-carnivores, and animals that feed on the earth, and some that feed on the roots, that feed from the bounty of the land, and it varies from the seashore up to the tops of the mountains, and that's a characteristic that they explained in talking about the mountains.
So I said, this is all nice, but no one here to enjoy this. Let's make a man like a Sal. So he went down to the creek there and got some mud and worked it over and worked the arms and legs and worked it over and made magic. And there stood in front a young man. So looked him over and said, now look, all around you. Hear those birds? See those animals over there? Said, oh, and look at those nice fruit on trees, berries, cherries. They're all yours now. So he left. Came back to check up on his man. Said, let's make a partner for him. So while he was asleep, he went over there and took a rib out of here and took another one out of here and put the ribs together and made strong magic. There stood in front of them a beautiful young lady, all dressed up nice, and said to the young man, look at her, it's a woman. It's your wife. After a while, you will have children, just look like you. After a while, came back to check over the two people there and left over and looked around. There were a lot of them by now, all in one big group, So he walked around. Of course, they didn't notice him. He walked around and looked. Little kids fighting each other and young men bragging about themselves. Looked them over and said, this is no good. Let's separate these. Some way down there, where it's summer all the time, or lived in the desert. And some way up here by the ocean, eating fish. And some here eating buffalo and wild animals. So it looked like he looked them over and then they're doing all right. Now, this is good. Look around, there's a small area. Said, I have enough room here to make a smaller tribe. So I'm going to do that. So made magic again. And there's some people there. Said, look around you. Said, I'm giving you a good place to live here. Good scenery, good seasons, all kinds of berries, cherries, roots to eat. Game is a good place. I'm going to give it to you now. It's all yours. But these other people will see you living in a good place and they're going to try and come and take it. So I'm going to make your young men, your men, good warriors, powerful. So they will protect it forever and ever. That's the origin of the Crow Indian as a tribe.
That, in essence, is the storyline of the creation story. I did not go into all the detail about this animal and that animal, or this mountain or that river, this tree or that tree.
There are scientific theories of how American Indian tribes came to the North American continent, but the Crow people have their own stories of origin. The Crow tribal elders explain what the Crow oral histories are.
Our point of reference is always back to our people, the Biruka. This is our country. And the Hidatsa is a name that they use that are given to them by other tribes, neighboring tribes, and then the English print it and say Hidatsa, and then they call us Crow. And as we understand it, we're just one people. We're the same. We are relocated members of that tribe. We don't live in the same place. But however, the Crow people say that our people before we became Crows were in this country, and they were in the mountains. The Creator said, "I've made different places for different beings, and I'm going to put some people in this particular area." And they call that place what is now Cloud Peak in Wyoming, and that's the name that the Crows use to this day.
These people once lived in southern Appalachia, in the southeast, in what is now the states of South Carolina, Georgia, maybe northern Florida. That group, they were there. Then, before the coming of the European men, 1492, way before that time, these groups started moving out of there for some reason, heading northwestward. Anyhow, the ancestral tribe of Sadoke, the Crow Indians, had come also northwestward, and from the stories that I have gathered together, from old time Crow Indian storyteller, that once upon a time that they lived in what I would regard now as a Great Lakes area, probably in Wisconsin. They had villages there, and they were farmers. They raised beans and squash and things like that. Then, of course, they ate fish there in the ponds there, and hunt deer and animals around there. And that's where they lived for a while. Now, our storytellers have taken me that far back. Now, they reported that they kept going west, crossed the big river, probably Mississippi, phase 2 or episode 2. They moved from, let's say, Wisconsin to Minnesota, northward, and then came to a river that's kind of meanders around and then came to a big lake. I think that is Lake Winnipeg in Canada. Now, our storytellers could take us right there. Anyhow, they left there. They left there and headed out west. So They did. They came to a river from the Black Hills country called Knife River. And there they set up their own village, and after a while they start building other little villages around there. And that's where we settled.